Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Animite Tales podcast. It's been a couple of weeks, but we are now back with an items workshop. Real quick rundown for the workshops. These are pretty much us using the Animite Tales tabletop RPG system to try and build things from fiction that already currently exist and figure out how they would work and how we would build them in the game of Animite Tales. Again, this is on the website, and whoever wins this will basically put that idea as a homebrew item that you can use in the game and figure out how to use it yourself. Now, disclosure, this is just something for a forewarning. These items will, if this game ever does become monetized, these items will not become in any way, shape, or form monetized whatsoever, because again, these aren't items that we own. However, they will be completely free and accessible on the website if you do wish to use them in your own homebrew games when you're playing with your party. Keep that in mind as we go on into this one. So today is the items workshop. This means that these items cannot be used as weapons, and I've also completely banned the options of vehicles. Now, in the terms of vehicles, I mean is something that you get in and ride them. However, anything else is pretty much allowed, regardless of the specific entails of it. Now, thanks to this, we shall move on very quickly. I feel like we should get probably the most ridiculous one out of the way first, which is Sam, your one. So, Sam, what have you got for us
mine
today?
the most ridiculous?
Well, I've seen the list, so tell us what yours is.
Okay, well, I decided that I was going to try to make the Omnitrix from Ben 10. So I was. And just so you're aware, I've not seen any series past the one where he's a kid. So this is probably somewhat out of date.
Carry on.
So do you want me to read the entire thing? Because it's quite long.
Well,
Sum it up, then.
Sum up.
Sum up. Well, it has three abilities. Genetic material copying, which is the power it has, which is when an individual with the power makes physical contact with the device will make a copy of the powers for the user to have. It will only happen for unique powers. So if you already have absolute strength, the Omnitrix will not copy the DNA of another absolute strength user. The transformation. When out of combat, a user can choose from any of the powers, but in combat must use an action to roll a 15 plus dexterity to select a power. The user is then transmogrified into a form that can combine the power in question. The user is granted all the benefits and downside of the chosen form, and only take Animite damage multiplier of the chosen superpower, i.e. superhuman, is 1 times. Meaning that if you had 70 powers, or any member powers it was, you wouldn't have 150 times Animite damage. Joe. Genetic grafting. When the device attaches to an individual's wrist, it cannot be detached by force, unless physically removing the arm, or by intangibility. Can't be removed by superpower manipulation or biological manipulation. Now, naturally, there are some downsides. There's the time limit. If the user has not gained mastery of the device, the user is able to remain transformed for 1d4 plus 4 rounds, or until knocked unconscious. When detransforms, the wielder cannot transform until 2 times the amount they were transformed, i.e., say 5 minutes, then they can't be transformed until 10 minutes later. Random power chance. Every time you use the Omnitrix, roll 1d100. When you get a 90 or higher, you transform into a random power. This also occurs if you fail the dexterity check. Either the DM can decide what power you get, or roll a dice to choose the power. E.g., having numbered the powers, you have 7 powers, with the third being the one you want. Roll a d8. With a 3 and 8, you'll transform into the power you want. You understand what I mean, don't you, Joe? That.
Yeah, just random chance and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, because in the show, he does that a lot. He accidentally transforms into the wrong one.
I mean, that's literally how he discovers, 50% of his aliens.
Yeah, that is accurate. This is total mastery. The user can spend 5 hours, once per month, to attempt to become the master of the device. User must manage 5 25 plus intelligence checks. This eliminates the time limit drawback and dexterity roll in combat. User can now transform their power during their transformation. And this is from the movie, which I've only seen twice, and it's been some time. So this isn't how this happens. Because me and Joe both said we think this is what happens. But total catastrophic explosion. If the user ever gets 2 natural ones in a row while attempting total mastery, or consecutively while attempting the dexterity check in combat, the Omnitrix enters its countdown. After 24 hours, halving that time for each transformation, i.e. 24 down to 12, then down to 6, the Omnitrix explodes, dealing 2d12 animite damage, energy damage, to a 30-meter radius times the number of powers inside, i.e. 3 powers equals 3d12 damage to 90 meters area. It will destroy the Omnitrix and can only be stopped by a natural 20 intelligence. And I think probably I might have to change that. So natural 20 intelligence maybe once every one of those hours. Or like once, like if you fail, you get like half again.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that you sort of finished?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we have 3 questions for you, which is obviously plausibility / the mechanics, lore friendliness, and homebrew / DM allowance. So I guess we'll go into the first one, which is lore friendly. I feel like it kind of works with it as much as possible.
As much as it can when we don't have aliens I mean, when the aliens in this context are people with powers who are genetically different to basic humans.
Also, to be honest, I think that you did it quite well, considering it's like, because it doesn't count 2 of the same alien. It's always, okay, it's this alien's DNA, almost like as if it's their progeny, because it uses like the DNA of that specific alien. So technically, like, it's not to say that if you were to find someone else who had super strength, that it wouldn't give you super strength. It's just that, like, okay, is this particular race different? So again, if it's humans, you'd only get 1 human type. Superhumans, there are different types of superhumans. So again, it makes sense that you'd be like, okay, the body is a customary of this thing. So I have the same body physiological factors as a time child, as a super strength user, as a fire mimic or whatever. Yeah. But say, for instance, if there were anthropials or aliens in the system and they touched it, you would then get all of those different ones based on each and every individual anthropial. So again, it's really cool. And also technically, if another animal touched it as well, you could also shapeshift into that animal and have all the attributes that animal has. So again, I think it's... God, sorry.
I am curious if that happens in later cartoons if he can transform into just birds.
They never do that, but they do claim something of the matter, because I think it's like there is an alien species that he does copy that have no real like intelligent life on their planet.
No. Actually, yeah, because I was about to say maybe it only does intelligent life after there. Because considering it's meant to be a communication tool, isn't it?
Like, but I think it's like mutt thing or something like that, or like dog.
They can communicate through. They can talk, can't they?
But they're not very intelligent creatures.
They are sentient.
I mean, yeah, but technically you could argue so are birds.
I mean, not really.
Well, they are sentient creatures.
Sentience is to have a conscious and understanding of yourself. Where where I think you'd argue a bird, they are instinctual creatures and thus don't really think about their actions. They do things based on instinct.
It has been proven that certain animals have that capacity. For instance, like dogs and chimps and dolphins have the capacity to understand themselves.
They are definitely not just instinctual things. They do actually have a sense of consciousness.
So I guess technically, would that mean that it would only limit itself to those kind of forms of life that actually have those capacity?
I guess so.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Uncertain.
Either way, anthropials and technically the system that we use for aliens, it would still work really well in that kind of concept. Obviously, we don't use it very often because again, it's very temperamental at the moment, but still good one.
To be fair, the rules are probably quite loosey-goosey in the show. Considering I remember at one point he gets like a werewolf one by becoming a werewolf.
That is actually it's a wolf-like alien race.
I know it's an alien, but it gets like scratched and he gets like the werewolf
begins to like werewolf transformation. Yeah, I will say the dumbest one is actually the fact that like he gets basically there's a Frankenstein race.
Yes.
And that's the dumbest one out of all of them. Okay, well, the wolf I get, it's alien wolf, whatever. But it's just so dumb when it's like, oh yeah, it's a Frankenstein. Oh, he was also a Frankenstein alien. Wait, what? Like, oh, just okay. But yeah, I'd say it's lore friendly. I don't know. What about you, Kane?
I mean, I could see it.
So
on one annoying character that you meet.
Yeah, fair enough. I will say there are two issues that I have with this, like massive issues, which kind of lean into the next thing, which is plausibility/mechanics. I don't think it's plausible in one regard, which is your downsides are way out of whack comparatively to the upsides. There are way too many upsides compared to the amount of downsides that there are. For instance, I think that if you wanted to be clever with the transformation thing, I think it should be, instead of 1d4 plus 4 rounds, 1d6 plus 4 rounds. Because then you can literally get a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 10. Just to go to that whole thing of like, oh, it lasts 10 minutes because burn 10. Just thought that would be cool.
Also means 20 minutes of not getting powers, of running away.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought 1d4 plus 4, because that's still maximum 8 minutes, so that's maximum 16 minutes.
Well, yeah. But the other thing is that when it comes to the time limit thing, technically the larger the time limit, the more ability points. If you have it an indefinite transformation, there are quite a lot of ability points entitled within it. Like I think it's like 2 or 3 or 4 or something like that. It really depends on the functions of the transformation. But when you start creating a time limit, you state, okay, well, the time limit always starts at 4 minutes. And then you have increased it by modifiers, which means an additional 4. So technically it's already at 4 points above the original initial thing. So that means that, like, theoretically, you might as well go for the full 5 additional points to make it then have the 10. In the terms of the 2 times amount, that's only one downside point, technically, because most streamers...
Wait, is it?
Yeah.
Isn't it 2? Because it's 1.5 and then 2?
No, so cooldowns have to exist in the first place. So technically, it doesn't go 1.5 either, because 1.5 is only for damage. Range, speed, and everything else is always 2. So at that point, it means that, like, the transformation, like, having the downside of 2 times the amount of time that you're in for cooldown time is actually only one downside. If, in all honesty, if you were to put it a bit higher, I actually kind of agree that it would be a bit too much, though, because I feel like the whole point is that, like, oh, it's a really cool thing. And again, having it that, like, at its weakest, you've been using it for 5 minutes, and then you have to not be able to use this entire object for 10. I feel like that's a punishment beyond sort of sense. So I kind of I understand that.
The thing as well is that you can actually transform into a rather useless one at the same time, then have to wait the 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like say you rolled the 91 and you need someone that does fire damage, but you accidentally get, I don't know, you get super intelligence.
Or slime mimicry with flammability, and now you take double damage from fire or something.
No. When you need fire, but because you're fighting like an ice mimic or something,
turn into water.
Yeah, something like that. And then you've not only do you have to wait for the transformation to end, you then also have to then wait the additional time afterwards.
Now, I do agree with you on that one. I mean, like, it's awful, but I will say I think also the random chance thing is actually not that bad, because when you get 90 or higher, you transform into a random one. There's also
or when you fail the dex.
Yeah, or when you fail the dex. But the thing is that, like, that's still only a couple downsides. And I think the thing is, I think it should be higher than 90. Because again, as I said, 50% of the time is when he does it. So I think having it 50, at that point, I'd argue that you'd almost balance out half of the downsides, almost, by that point. The catastrophic explosion thing, where you said, like, oh, unless if they get a natural 20 with intelligence, they can fix it. I like that idea. Where it's like they can only do it once, and if they can't, maybe someone else has to. Maybe add that as a downside. Because
and I think that's what happens. He fucks up and he has to go find whoever makes it.
Yeah, and I think they go on a journey, because I think there's like 2 people that they try and speak to, and eventually they actually find the guy who creates it, and he finally fixes it. And I think
all I know is at some point, I think All I can remember is him running with a giant gun in the field of battle. I remember that happened in the movie.
I think so. Oh yeah, wasn't it because wasn't there a thing that they got, and at some point it literally he got an object that was wielding the power of the explosions from the from the watch. So
I mean,
something like that. I can't remember. It's something stupid, but yeah. So I feel like in the terms of mechanics, it works relatively well, but I do think it's very unbalanced. I mean, I'm not even saying that having the ability to shapeshift like this is unfair or unbalanced. I think it's legitimately an illegal unbalance in the forms that there are downsides that aren't counteracting the upsides using the system.
Again, it is a legendary item. There's only one of them.
Yeah, but that, the difference between what you're arguing is actually legitimately breaking the rules. Is what I'm saying. Is that
True.
You would have to tweak it for it to be within the rules of the confines of this. So, I'd say probably the whole thing of natural 20 intelligence to fix a catastrophic explosion thing over the 24-hour period. I think instead stating it that it's if failed to get an intelligence check to get it, in other words, if failed to get an actual 20, another creature has to go and have a look at it, and it has to be a new creature each time, otherwise it won't, no one will be able to fix it. In the terms of the explosion, I do like the fact that it does Animite / energy, not just Animite, because I think that would have been a big issue. It's it's an explosion that doesn't affect half of the races, so I like that kind of works.
Because if you're a human, it would do nothing to you.
Yeah.
If it's just Animite. Also because it wouldn't do anything to the area around you.
Yeah, I mean...
Because, if it was, energy and Animite, it will kill most things.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if you have especially with the amount of powers, Eon's he has on it.
So I'd say for that, probably... it'd have to go to a 50% chance of you being able to fail it. Having it where if someone fails the natural 20, they basically can't do it, and then I guess you'd have to come up with some other potential downside. I understand the whole thing of obviously you don't take any additional damage based on what you transform into, because again, I agree with that. There's 14 different creatures in here, and some of them are Omega level, some of them are Huskonian, some of them are superhuman, one of them's an anomaly. It doesn't make sense that you'd be anyway, so I turn into the one that's based on an anthropial, and it's I get hit and I take 17 times damage. I completely agree with you. It's only based on the creature that you are.
I suppose you could have a story down. Could you have a story downside where you're hunted by some entity?
I mean, I guess that would be more
downsides for because it is one of those unique object things where it's going to be hunted after.
I mean, to be honest, yes, but it wouldn't necessarily be anything that's more mechanically downside based. I mean.
Yeah, but yeah,
I think you'd have to actually make an entity for that to be the case. No matter what, it's always like that. As in, you get this, and then this entity will always hunt you down no matter what.
So once it's created, an entity is then also created, and then that entity knows of roughly your location or something.
Yeah, I think you'd have to do it like that if you wanted something like that. So it'd be less of a story downside than an actual downside of something is created to hunt you down, or something hunts you down for this.
Bit of column A, bit of column B concept.
But you'd have to then make an entire stat block for that thing.
Yeah.
On top of the item. So
yeah.
So I guess
I do know Joe likes making stat blocks for people. For
enemies. You should just get him to do it.
Yeah. No.
How would you make Vilgax?
Don't. Okay, no. That is all right. That is the next time that I talk about something like that, because I would actually love to talk about building Vilgax or Ghost Freak or one of the countless numbers
Hex?
of Hex. Yeah. Okay.
Or nine. Obviously, the best one, the weather machine robot. That for that one episode.
The silence speaks volumes on that one.
I don't know anything about Ben 10, so I'm just sitting here nodding.
I will say. Let's go back to it. So the last thing is that we should probably talk about on this is then obviously the
DM allowance.
Yeah, the homebrew and DM allowance. From 1 to 10, I'm gonna have to say it's probably gonna be a solid 8.
Is 8 allowable or is it no?
Oh, as in like the amount of like homebrew / allowance that you'd have to have just to allow this.
I guess 1 is like you need pretty much none, if not none, and 10 is
not.
10 is basically your DM is pretty much just going, all right, cool, you've won me over with a bunch of like treats and threads, or even stating that this is a one-time deal, sort of almost like as if it would only be for a one-shot sort of thing. I'd say I'd say it's a solid 8. The only reason is because that like. Theoretically, the story downsides and also making it more downside oriented, it could be good. But also, I think it could have some really cool stuff. But I think as a DM, you would probably have to be like, maybe, yeah. Especially if the durability is NA, which I understand as well. But it's also that thing of like, someone can't just easily destroy it, which technically. Law friendly again, which is another one of the reasons why I said it's very law friendly.
Yeah, no one can basically remove it off of you, and it can't be destroyed off of you either.
Yeah,
that's why I said you essentially have to remove the arm. And as far as I know, intangibility I think would work on it, but I'm not certain. I don't think they
if
have.
You had reality's gift, there's no reason why it wouldn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if that happens in the series. I don't think the intangible one I know is Ghost Freak.
There's a couple of times that they use it, but Ghost Freak actually can't use his intangibility to remove the watch because it's infused into his DNA. But also because his intangibility is more like spectral and ethereal rather than actually like spatial.
Yeah, it works on him. I think doesn't as well. I don't think he can make other things. As far as I know, I don't think he can make other things like intangible.
As
far as I can remember,
no, he can't. No. He can possess people, but that's only.
Yeah, it's more like the ghostly intangibility. Ability. Yeah.
Okay, so
what? I'd say like a 7 or an 8.
7 or an 8. Okay.
I think probably 7. Yeah, 7 or 8. Because I think this would be something a DM would give someone, as opposed to someone like asking for it.
I think this would be something that genuinely someone is asking for. Like this seems like something that you would come to me with, like Sam. Like
no, I feel like this would be something that like you would ask for, but then you would have to say, like you'd have to do a quest or something for it, or like there'd be some kind of you'd have to do some very big story DMing stuff. If you're getting this, as opposed to
I don't know.
Here's a bow and arrow thing.
I think for me, the way that it would work is if someone had come to me and said this, like, "Can I have this?" Like, say for instance, if you would say, "Can I have this?" I'd be like, "Fine," but it have to be like at the beginning of a campaign. This is your item, blah blah blah, whatever, and you are going to be hunted by 3 mini bosses / actual big ass bosses at some point. Get ready. So I think that would be the kind of concept.
You have the Fortune Child's limitation where you just have bad stuff happen to you.
No, to put a twist back on the previous episodes, you get hunted down by someone with the shard blade.
Oh no!
Yes.
Death.
I mean, why'd you have to spoil the next campaign?
Anyway, so we've got that. So that's 7s and an 8. So 2 7s and an 8. From us. Kane, do you want to go next?
So you want the shortest one to go next? I see.
I think mine's actually probably going to be shorter than yours, but go on.
If you're sure, okay. So I'm making the wardrobe to Narnia because I wasn't allowed to make the Death Star. Rigged. So essentially, to make this thing, like all wardrobes, most of the time you need wood. Except you need wood from the universe you want this wardrobe to go to. Need some hinges for those doors because those things won't sort themselves out. And the most important part, probably apart from the wood, is you need the blood of a time child, specifically one with gate creation and a level 10 stopper. Essentially, this creates a single point into the other universe that you've sort of made this wardrobe connected to. And it allows you to travel to that point by walking through the wardrobe. Once you walk through, everything sort of acts like normal. However, once you walk back through the portal, your biological time is essentially set to where it was previously. Only bad things really is that if the door gets shut on you or you're on the other side, you're kind of screwed because you can't open it on that side, so you're stuck. You can only essentially use this thing twice in total, and you have to, the amount of time you're in there, you have to wait until you can use it again. So that's my item. You can be up to a size 3 category thing as well. That's about it, really. Big wardrobe.
Fair enough. I guess, where should we start here? Should we start at lore friendly?
Sure. Why not?
Well, Sam, do you feel like this is a lore friendly item?
From what I know of the Chronicles of Narnia, the movie, seems pretty, yeah.
I have to be honest, I feel like it is. Relatively. Yeah. Considering that, like, as you said, that you did a time child, nice alteration there since
I don't know what you mean. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
So the idea that, like, obviously you go into it, you can spend as much time as you want. When you come back out, it's basically almost like as if it's only a couple moments have passed since you left. Which I quite like that. Also, like, basically doesn't age you in the same way, or at least when you come out, like, you are back to the age that you were when beginning your journey in the other universe, basically. So in that particular circumstance, that entirely makes sense. That's fair enough. I would say the only thing that I have in the terms of lore friendliness is, I guess, obviously, the way in which that it's built. No, I'm kidding. There's no other way that you could have done it.
The whole thing, really.
To be honest, the only way that you could have done it completely perfectly is if you had it that the wood was actually made out of a tree that was basically infused with the blood of a time child, and it just so happened that it was cut down. But there's no way. There's no way that you could expect those things to happen.
What, the tree is a child tree from a tree that has essentially, like, is a protective tree that the apple from it has the property to basically cure anyone's illness.
Yes.
So you'd essentially really have to have grown a child tree from this one tree and then make a wardrobe out of that tree.
Which, again, I feel like at that point that would be picking hairs, which...
That's why I just said you can grab any old tree as long as it's from that place.
I like that, though. I like that idea that, you know, it
has to be enough to make it, though, so you can't just fucking pick up a twig and go,
alright, that's enough. One splinter, that'll be good. Yep, just insert that into the slight
just slam it in there, there you go.
Bam! Like, it's just now put into there like a bit of a near paste.
I mean, the only thing is you probably pretty much have to be a catalyst to make this, if not maybe a nature user, like nature's law user.
Or be an incredibly clumsy time child carpenter.
Yes.
Damn, I keep getting my blood all over this beautiful...
That's my favourite one.
I now want that. There's just how is this made? And it's just a guy who just cuts and bruises all over his hands. Like, I'm really terrible, guys.
And then just written on it in gold font, Legion's wardrobe.
Oh yes, the reference no one will get.
It's just got his coats and just the Chronorum just hanging up on one of the coat hangers. Anyway, well, lore friendly. I think we both agree it's pretty as lore friendly as it absolutely can get. I think arguably, potentially, even more lore friendly than Sam's, only because we don't actually know what the watch is made out of. Whereas, like, we definitely know that the wardrobe is made out of wood and metal.
I mean, and don't forget, many things have happened. Like what, 10 years? I don't know what happens in the other series.
Fair. Plausibility mechanics, it's literally the pocket dimension ability and even multiversal traveling, so it's actually probably the most beautifully accurate piece that we're probably going to see today. In the terms of anything else, I don't know. What do you feel, Sam?
I mean... are we talking for DM allowance or for how it is mechanically? I
mean, unless if you have anything to say for lore mechanics, you can move on to DM allowance if you feel like you've got nothing else to say.
I mean, mechanically speaking, it's sound. It is essentially, yeah, it is just dimensional travel through a gateway. The gateway being a wooden door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Don't close it on you, and you're all good.
Yeah, it's the Monsters Inc. door of doors.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also needs all the wood correct to make it open.
That's also true.
Yeah. I think for DM Alliance, I think it's probably a hard 10.
Really? Okay.
Okay, do we tell? I shall explain my reasoning.
I have a feeling that I know your reasoning, but I would love to hear it. Go on.
I mean, only because dimensional travel by itself should always be given by the DM for this kind of thing.
Actually, that is the rule of multiversal travel with any panel that runs it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a rule that you have to get the DM's permission if you can use this
I
ability.
hate to sound like a lawyer who's just like really upset in the 1950s, but damn it, he's just gone and throw the whole rule book at us. Like
because like Narnia is like storybook land with
let's be magic. This entire item is for plot.
Yeah, this is a plot item.
You don't build this, or you don't have this because some player just wants a fucking wardrobe that goes to another universe. No, exactly. More likely, some NPC ages ago made this thing, and you've just somehow fucking bought it off Craigslist.
The only reason why it wouldn't be...
This is the thing the DM gives you. You don't get this. The DM gives this to you.
Only reason why it is because the DM allows it. Like, literally, say, for instance, if an Arco said, hey, I want to have a wardrobe that literally sends me to another universe, he could do it, but I could go, yeah, it opens and it goes to your pocket dimension. Whereas, like, in the rules, like, again, with the whole thing that you said with the rules, theoretically, you could infuse a watch with the ability of shapeshifting, where you slap the watch and it shapeshifts you. Like, yeah, like, certain facets and factors that you've got in that watch theoretically have some capabilities that are beyond the usual allowances for powers, but technically all of the stuff that is there is still based on powers itself. Whereas, like, you'd have to go to this universe, first off, and then come back, and then just be like, hey, I'm going to now turn this object into a portal where we can go into it. And again, having the downside of it not being able to, like, you being able to go back in it so easily is, like, a really nice cooldown aspect. But also at the same time, it's like, oh man, we can't go back there for the sake of doing this story unless if plot convenience allows us because of the downside to the wardrobe. Yeah. So yeah, 100% it is. I didn't actually think of that until you just said that, Sam, which was, yeah, it literally says, unless if the DM allows it, you can't actually travel to another universe.
Yeah.
And also, because it's not like it's just a pocket dimension that's... Let's say pocket dimension is like at most, 100 meters?
It's a whole nother story, theoretically.
Yeah, like technically, I didn't even say the wardrobe allows pocket dimension access. All I stated is that the wardrobe just takes you to the other universe.
Yeah.
No, what I mean is, like, that's what we were talking about, was like, Joe was saying about it just leads to your pocket dimension.
If anything, this one can't, because the ability itself does not have a pocket dimension. If it was Animon Child.
No, but what he's saying is if I was to say that and it's like, okay, that's the best you're gonna get. Yeah. So sorry.
What I mean is like a pocket dimension is like 100 meters squared, roughly. That's the maximum you can get, roughly. We're talking about a whole other universe.
My man's got a whole universe squared.
We're talking about like maps and like plot details and kings
living
and queens
creatures
and history and lineage,
potential other items and stuff like that. Yeah,
like fawns and shit.
A whole new campaign inside your campaign.
Like people with actual names.
Yeah.
That's what I made. We can't just have.
I hope so. Anyway,
you can't just force the DM to make that on the spot.
To be fair, Kane, Anarche has that in his pocket dimension. He has people with names and characters and animals. And
100 meters squared of people and animals that he's put in there.
Fair.
It's not that he's going to like do like the walking to Mordor scene from the Lord of the Rings.
Are you sure about that?
It's like
So I mean, yeah, that's actually pretty valid. Although my question is, can quantum space, because it is based on pocket dimensions and manipulation of space, something that you could size it up to a whole kilometer squared?
Technically.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. Anyway, okay, fair enough. Well, I guess there's not much else to say about it except for
it's just 2 automatic 10 items. I'll take it.
So I haven't actually given my allowance here, but it's gonna have to be 10 because I'm sorry, but Sam literally threw my own rules at me, and he's actually right. The whole ability is relying on that, and it's literally a whole other campaign inside your own campaign. So I mean, what do you think it is? Okay, what do you feel it is?
I mean, it is literally a 10 by all means.
You knew it was a 10 before we even got to this.
That's why I made it, because everything I make is a 10, and it has to be. Otherwise, I'm not making it.
I mean, you know what? I think it is a perfect 10.
It is a perfect 10.
It
is. I don't think you'll ever
my
get...
shard blade.
In every way that counts.
It wasn't a perfect 10. It was a 9 because we were like, because could allow it sort of thing. But this is legitimate perfect
10. Just gotta get more like this every week.
Time. I'm gonna crank it up to 11.
Be that moment like, Kane, I don't know if I could get an 11, but it's an 11. it's so difficult for DM allowance. I don't think DMs would allow.
When vehicles become a thing, the Death Star is happening. Okay,
the portable Death Star.
Okay, right. Well, I guess I'll go through mine one then. So. My one, which is the last item on this list, is the Cloak of Invisibility. The item type is shock horror, a cloak. The requirements for it are pretty much almost nothing, except from whoever's wielding the cloak must be a category 3 or smaller, basically meaning that they cannot be any bigger than 3 meters tall. The cloak itself covers the entire body, and they must roll a stealth check of 15, and they become completely invisible. The materials are silk, Huskonian stone that requires invisibility, and a power stone of energy manipulation that has light refraction. The durability of this is anywhere between 50 to 100, depending on the durability of the silk, depending on if it's actually legitimate silk or spider silk. The range of this can actually cover one whole category 3 creature, 3 category 2 creatures, or 5 category 1 creatures. The abilities allow the user to be completely invisible. However, the cloak itself, whilst it does make the user completely invisible, and no ocular powers are able to see through the cloak, instead they just see past it. So in other words, they can't actually, basically see you. Quite literally. However, there are abilities that can get past this, such as aura detection, willpower, instincts, and obviously things like audio and smells. So obviously, if you reek and are too loud, you are definitely going to be noticed. When rolling a 15 or above on stealth, you are completely covered. Anyone who is attempting to attack you or see you or notice you is going to be rolling a disadvantage. The downsides or the drawbacks of this is the object cannot completely cover any creature that is a category 3 or larger. Anything that is larger than category 3. If any AoE attacks that are encompassing the attacker, so in other words, like a big AoE that just generates from them rather than firing an attack that then creates an AoE of splash damage away from them, they don't have to roll a disadvantage because they're not aiming at anything. They're aiming at everything around them. So they don't have to roll disadvantage for that. Instinctive aura, as well as aura detection, instinctive will, and aura sense all work against the cloak's invisibility. And this item does not work on category 0 creatures, meaning anything less than 51 centimeters cannot wield it on their own. They must band together, or they must be amongst the creatures that are large enough to be able to wield it.
I do have one question.
Yeah.
What about thermal vision?
No vision abilities can actually see.
I mean, I don't understand why, because they still go off heat, don't they?
So this is actually a very good thing. That's why the light reflection ability. So the light reflection actually basically almost cancels it out, because it almost bends your ability to perceive thermals around that cloak.
Color theory.
Yeah. But yeah. So that's pretty much it. I was really tempted on also having it where it has an illusion factor, where it literally encompasses it, so that then nobody can make those arguments of like, oh, is it or isn't it? But at the same time, I felt like that was just a bit too much. Yeah. So I guess we'll go on to lore friendly. I mean, I made it literally specifically based on the concept of a cloak that you wrap around you. It's supposed to be a Deathly Hallow, so it's kind of bullshit the way that it works. In the forms of like it literally makes you invisible to almost anything and everything, but it's not necessarily made by death, but it's also not necessarily not made by death.
I mean, remember, it was meant to be a kid's story. Who knows if it actually was death that made it in the story?
Yeah, it was just the local ice cream man.
Yeah, it was just called Mr. DF.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really know, personally. I think it's relatively lore-friendly in the terms of the aspects of how it works. But in the terms of actually its origins, no. Obviously not.
I don't think any of our items can say the origins.
Kane's is the closest one to lore-friendly in the terms of, like its origins. Yeah. In terms of in terms of all their aspects, I think they're all lore-friendly in the terms of how they function. But in terms of anything else, obviously they're not going to be too lore friendly in the terms of everything, but yeah. Plausibility and mechanics.
I mean, it's not too OP by any means. Well, it's actually quite far from being OP.
It's literally both of the invisibility powers.
Yeah, basically, it's just invisibility. It's a wearable invisibility thing.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, is a rare ability in the game. There's not many things that can actually grant you invisibility.
I also just realised, although thermal vision doesn't work, heat sense would from pyrokinetics.
Would work. Yeah.
I would think thermal vision, because you give off heat when you walk on stuff.
No, so it's a vision, so it's like the term visibility.
No, but would their footprints still have heat traces on them? Is I think what he meant. So, where they'd previously walked.
It depends. It depends on how much heat they're giving off and if they're barefoot. Because again, you wouldn't necessarily always give off a lot of heat from normally walking around, depending on the heat that your body is giving off and the heat from your feet or shoes or whatever you're walking on.
Yeah, so depending on the environment that could work. But you wouldn't be able to actually obviously see them, you just see where they had been walking.
Yeah, so say for instance you wouldn't necessarily say for instance that you would be like, okay, I can't see them, but then as soon as they like touch an object with their warm hands on a cold surface, like, oh, that's freaky. They are somewhere in this room, or they are right there or something.
Turns into the Invisible Man trailer.
But yeah, heat sense would work.
Could you throw? What would happen if you threw dust or something on the cloak?
You would see the individual, because that's how invisibility and light refraction works as well.
Yeah, so it's not those things like it becomes visible for a moment and then just like becomes invisible.
No, technically, if you had like illusions, that might work, but because it's literally just light reflecting and.
I mean, the theoretical factor is that, like, if blood or anything else is covering onto it, it needs to be washed or needs to be dusted before it can not be seen. Because there is certain aspects of when it's actually used in the films, is that you can still slightly see it whilst it's moving around for a short period of time.
But in the films, do people actually... Is that just for our benefit, or is that for the actual in-universe benefit?
I think it's actually shown in the films that at some point something gets stuck on it or something touches it, and that thing doesn't become invisible either.
Yeah.
You have to go to your local lingerie.
Yeah.
Wash your cloak of invisibility.
But no, yeah. I think... Now that you've explained to me, Jeff, if you were to throw stuff at it, or like throw stuff in an area of effect, it would land on it, so it'd be like best case scenario is like a one-shot item.
I mean, it depends, because I mean, obviously, if people don't know that you're there, like, say for instance, if you're in the middle of combat and you go, cloak, then you're obviously going to be like, all right, where's the red paint? Whereas, if you don't know someone's in the room with you who's invisible, you're not going to be aiming for someone like that.
Why don't I carry red paint on me? Sorry, I'm time.
Fair.
I mean, I'm doing a different campaign, actually. I carry a lot of red paint for my pirate ship, the Red Baroness.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, obviously, this is an item where you sneak into it, you know, like used in the film, you use it to like sneak into a location or something, or you know, once you're running away, you might like duck into a corner and put it on, so people just run past you or something, right? It's if you're in a battle already, it's going to be something that's not theoretically impossible to pull off, but it's going to be very hard to pull off.
I meant more if you go from this into battle, not like you're halfway in battle then do this.
Yeah.
Like if you're under the cloak and you like try to punch someone,
yeah,
like walk away, someone might theoretically at that point realize they're in an empty room.
Translucent. If you've ever seen The Boys, Translucent, there's a point where like he's covered in someone's and his own blood at one point. Actually, no, it is just someone else's blood. So he's covered in someone else's blood, and you can still see him floating around and stuff. So yeah, I guess plausibility and mechanics.
Also, rainy day sucks to be.
I mean, there is a theoretical possibility where that wouldn't be too much of a problem, but it would definitely be an issue in the terms of, what's that like weird ghostly shape where rain is just stopping?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're still invisible, but if anything else, you're now more visible because you're the one area where the rain isn't hitting. Like,
or snow. Just you with your feet, footprints in the snow, and also just you covered in a white sheet. If it's continuing to snow,
I mean, they show that in Azkaban, in the Prisoner of Azkaban, they actually show it where it's like he's walking out and there's like stumbling over shit and stuff like that, and that's how they find him.
I'm thinking more the movie, the 1940s, The Invisible Man.
Oh, fair enough.
Just thinking of all the ways to screw the Invisible Man over.
Okay, so in the terms of plausibility, we're all happy with its plausibility. It's probably super easy belly and inconvenience to wield it, have it in a campaign, and as you said, potentially a one-shot item. Even if it doesn't get destroyed or ruined, it's still that thing of like, I mean, it's really useful, but I'm not going to use it all the time because it could get damaged, and therefore it's useless. Yeah, fair enough. Amount of homebrew / DM allowance.
I mean, there's practically none really, apart from the fact that there's a couple of like added limitations to the craftsmanship of it, but like I don't know.
So, in all honesty, the only things that I can see with it is because it's a blood-infused item with 2 separate powers with specific abilities onto them that grant invisibility. That's not the worst thing in the world. I'd say probably having...
No, but one of them is a husk ability, which basically means you have to take their power and disregard 2 of the 3 abilities that they have and put it into an item with a superhuman power and just go say, hey, so you know those other 2 powers? They don't exist.
Which, to be fair, is one thing. And the other issue is obviously that theoretically, if you just sit there with a decent enough set of stealth rolls, you are invisible indefinitely.
As long as there's nothing environmental or something else to screw you over, you just can't be seen.
Yeah.
And unless someone like an animal child rocks up and points you out.
I would say, in that particular regard, I'd say it's a 3. Because you'd have to have a little bit of a lance. Okay. But it's not something that's so easy that you could just go, I don't need the DM to allow it. I know that it's allowed.
Yeah, no, you definitely need some consideration, but it's not like enough for like broken stakes of concern, at least from what I'm thinking of.
Let me put
unless you have an ability that also has a lot of invisible factors to it, like you have this in spatial. And so you just wave your arms about under the clock.
Yeah, let me put it this way: like,
that's an intangibility.
If an arcade said that, like, say for instance, if you were even with your next character or something, and you said, "Hey, can I get this, as my starting item or something?" Like, okay, yeah, because your powers are visually obvious. So it's going to be obvious where your powers are coming from, or even like because theoretically there could also be that thing of like you being in an environment where you're wielding your powers and also covering yourself in this, something's going to give. Something's going to get damaged in some way, shape, or form. Now, if you were to say, I have telekinesis or I have spatial, there could be a theoretical argument of like, maybe not. Or even telepathy. That could also be awful, where it's like, invisible and a telepath. Cool. Yeah. No.
But depending on the person and who's asking for it, I can see different reasons for responses.
But I'd still say that it's an item that, because it's not indestructible, a DM can still go, I'm targeting that item. And again, as we've already said, Power Stone-based items, if they're destroyed, there is a good chance that they will never be able to be used again. Similar to enchantments in D&D, if you tear it and damage it enough, the enchantment has disappeared, and the blood infusion from it is also so vastly ruined that even if you do repair it perfectly, there's a good chance that it won't have the ability ever again.
Actually, can I ask something? Because there's something just recalled to my mind there.
What's that?
Remember Luna could see it with her special glasses?
Could she?
Yeah, that's how she finds Harry in the seventh, I think it's the seventh movie.
Gosh, yes, yeah.
But he's knocked unconscious. He's frozen in place on the ground, and she sees him with her magic glasses. Would that be aura detection or ocular powers?
You know what? I think that would either be aura detection or there's three different possible things: shadow sight, which is the Void Child ability, aura detection, and this is actually one that I think it would actually be UV light, but as a it's like the UV light under energy manipulation, where the user can actually see weird flickers in light bending. So it's maybe that sort of thing, where it's because they look like 2D glasses. So again, it would kind of make sense that it could see flickers in light to a certain degree, to actually see that in that specific aspect. But yeah, I guess it would either be that or aura detection or something.
Yes, just because I remember that just came to my mind there. Because I remember there was actually one person who could actually see through the cloak.
I forgot about that. That was so cool.
Yeah,
fair enough. But what do you guys think in the terms of homebrew and DMing allowance out of 10?
What do you think, Ian?
Oh, I see. Shoving it onto me first.
Oh yeah.
Well, I said 3, and I gave my reason for it.
Yeah. I feel like going over 3 is unreasonable.
Fair.
Because I don't think it's one of those things where I think it becomes less the item for why someone would give it, and more like what someone might be doing with things they already have, like abilities.
If you were to ask it at the beginning of a game, would you allow it? Versus if you're in the middle of a game and people now know what kind of ways that their abilities work, would you be giving it away, or would someone be asking for it? If so, would that change your answer?
Because I feel like this could work both ways. Because I feel like someone could ask for this, right? And even early game, there's a possibility that. But in early games, a lot harder because obviously abilities don't function as easily, and there's a lot less limiting factors.
Yes.
I still think there would be a certain few abilities I'd be very questionable to giving it to. Like spatial, because you can already do so much with that ability from the get-go.
Or a catalyst I was going to say, or a catalyst who would just straight up go, alright, yeah, cool, so I remove the powers.
Sneaking around, yeah.
Why do you have to call me out like that, Joe?
I mean, Sam, just...
I mean, a fun one I wouldn't mind giving it to, just out of pure bias, is someone with copying, so they just sneak around and touch people.
that's actually not a bad idea, to be fair.
I mean, or perverts. Never give this to a pervert.
Oh yeah, speedophile, just a running invisible speedster.
Oh god.
I mean, on the bright side, if you're also not a speedster, you don't have to worry. But I mean,
has this become the opposite of Boots of Blinding Speed from Morrowind?
So I mean, I still think there's a few combinations of the power, even early game. I'd be like, all right, make your argument.
Make your argument as to why, and I'll tell you why you're wrong.
Why I'm specifically giving this to you. However, if I just put this as an item in the game, I think when I would do that, I'm fully committed to the fact that anyone in the group could get this.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, all right, you might make a broken combo. That's my fault, but I didn't put it there. I didn't specifically give it to you, so it's a bit of a different story.
Yeah.
Fair. So I still feel like about a 3 kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Because again, my things is there's just few limiting things and specific things that I'd be questionable to give it to someone, but wouldn't outright deny it. So,
what about you, Sam?
I think to be honest, before you give the explanation, I was thinking 2, but now I do think 3.
Yeah.
Because there are not only just the power combinations, just the ability to to kind of fight against it also make it very difficult.
Yeah, but as we've already said, I think Kane actually said it quite well. It was like, I think it is not only just the mechanical, but it's also the story situation as well. Like,
yeah,
are you starting off with this, or have you started getting used to your abilities? Are you requesting this, or am I just straight up giving it to you, sort of thing?
The only way I would give this to someone to start off with is either if it's a high level campaign, or like mid to high level campaign, or it's one of those campaigns where they all get one magic item.
Yeah, or at least like it's like every so many episodes, it's like, oh well, this is a new like season almost, and here we go with this new item.
Or if we're playing the characters from the TV show Dungeons and Dragons, and someone wants to play the thief, because that is also what she has in the series.
Fair enough.
Because of course, but just the fact, I don't know why, it's just the fact ocular powers can't see it is what bugs me. That's the one thing. Because like it's supposed to be, I can understand why most other things can't see it, but just the fact that one power becomes obsolete against
it. There are. It makes sense why, but there also are very few limiting factors to be able to actually like. Because unless you just, like you said before, bias AOE the area.
Yeah.
It's you just not be able to see it, but do that, and then like, what if you have possibly Aura Sense? So either you are specifically like two abilities, one a Husk and one an Omegan, a Pyrokinetic with Heat Sense, or you just learn Willpower, which may just be capped off to you depending on the campaign. Well, if I'm not mistaken, those were like the 3 to 4 things that were able to detect it from your list.
Oh, what about Life Sense?
That is Aura Sense.
No, like with biological manipulation, can't you use?
Yeah, that would work. That would work. Yeah, because it's a biological life within your radius, so yeah, you'd be able to sense it that way.
So it's essentially just sensory powers still work.
Most sensory powers do work, yeah. It's just the ocular base. Because it's literally invisible. It wouldn't be a very great invisible
sight
cloak.
Is not being able to see you.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It would be kind of terrible. It's like, oh wow, the one power that is really well known for being sight. It's kind of like if I said, so I've got this Dragon Slayer's armor, and it's actually flammable. Like, it'd be like, oh no, the one thing dragons are known for.
You say that, but there are other chromatic dragons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a great argument there.
My point is really just sort of like the more, because the most commonly known legendary iconism in the terms of dragons is the fire-breathing dragon. It's the most iconic thing. So that's what I'm really talking about. I'm not necessarily saying any dragon, because again, at that point, it's like, well, there's a difference. But my point is that like, if you're trying to create an invisibility cloak, and people with special eye powers can just see through it, then it's not a very good invisibility
cloak. You'd want your refund.
Yeah.
I'm happy with most of it. It's just the thermal one, the thermal vision. That's the only one. I mean, I understand the other one's going past it, but just the fact that you give off heat.
Yeah, and you would still be seen in certain aspects. You just wouldn't be completely seen, because again, kind of terrible. If that was the case,
even the Predator was seen in thermal.
Yes, but the Predator was, but the people who the Predator was fighting were also like they just covered themselves in mud. But also they didn't have in the cloak of invisibility.
With the second movie where they had thermal cameras.
But yeah, so I think we're all agreeing on 3 then, yeah?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, well in that case then, I guess that makes me the winner of this particular bout. I don't know how I should feel about this. I feel like I've gone for like the easy mode because it was just something that had one ability. But
all I know is I didn't win, so that's all I can.
Fair enough.
All I know is that mine took Mine was 3 weeks in the making.
Do you want my honest opinion in terms of it though? I do feel like in the terms of DM allowance, but in the terms of the actual functionality and in the terms of rules, Kane wins the rules one. I'm sorry, but Kane does win the rule.
I can't.
It does though, because it literally functions like how as Sam even said himself, it literally functions how the pocket dimension and the portal thing works. So like it, yeah. Whereas like ours has certain additional things that don't work to the original aspect intended.
So technically, Kane's is both a 10 and a 1.
Yes, yeah.
He is the
dichotomy. Full circle.
It's like in the terms of allowance, it's like no, like a DM would have complete control over yes or knowing it, whereas like mine would have like like a DM could kind of like overlook it and it could sneak through. I just realized what I said there. Yours
a DM would say, I mean, it's cool, but... Yeah.
I mean, it's cool, but we're going to have a talk about this. Whereas, like, a DM would look at Kane's and either go, no. You know what, fine, but... Or even just go, yes, but... Or even, no.
You would be with mine, though, Joe? It'd be, I'll give it to you when you're level 1 and you fight people that are like level 3 powers and make sure they touch it so you have the weakest version of all the powers.
Yeah. I think that...
And you can't get any of the cool ones.
I think the worst one, though, is that
absolute strength level 1.
If I was a DM and you presented me these 3, I do know that I would probably geek out the most at Sam's. I would think hard about Kane's, and I think I would definitely allow mine, but in the terms of like shit that I would just allow for the sake of allowing, Kane's would probably be the easiest one for me to go, yeah, sure, fine. And then someone goes, yeah, I'm going to go into it. And then I just troll you by having it that the world that you go into just ends that character's existence in the current story of the campaign.
I mean that's the thing about my item is you don't know what universe it's come from unless you know specifically. So unless you've been told, it goes to anywhere.
However, in terms of replication, I would also allow, out of all of them, I wouldn't allow someone to know the recipe to make the Omnitrix. I don't know if I'd be happy with the idea of someone having the ability to make a recipe to make the cloak of invisibility. Because imagine people just running around
just
with
the whole
Omnitrixes and cloaks and stuff like that. Like, everyone has like a watch that allows them to... But if everyone has a wardrobe that goes to another universe, and they had to go to that universe first, it basically means that it won't send them almost anywhere.
Actually, you know what's amazing is you could just make an infinite number of wardrobes then by just going go to one universe, grab the wood of that.
Technically, if you're smart, what you'll do is you'll take wood from your universe and then build it in that universe, so that you have another way back into your universe. And
to be fair, do what you do. Someone goes into the wardrobe, and like, you don't end their character. You just ask them to roll like a D20 and see what happens. Like they become King of Scotland, and then they come back and they're still the same level they were.
I never stated that technically if you built more wardrobes, the 2 times thing would technically not happen because it's for the specific wardrobe. So technically, if you just keep making wardrobes, there's no, and you have the blood, there's technically nothing to stop you from just constantly going back anyway.
I think
Wouldn't that mash the universes together, considering how we're doing it in this game?
Well, either way,
you're bringing 70 different wardrobes together.
Look, you create like 70 doors into one universe. Like, it's not really an issue, right? As long as you close 69 of them, nice. You're good, really. So,
either way, I think we should at least give commendations to all of us in some way, shape, or form. I basically won this one in this regard, but I still think Sam's probably takes the home in the terms of the most amount of dedication, and Kane would definitely take it home in the terms of the one that I would allow people to know the recipe of, because there is no goddamn way that anyone would ever be allowed to have that item, the Omnitrix, unless if there was only one of them in the entire game and the entire story. And the same with the Cloak of the Invisibility. Like, I just... it's gone, it's destroyed forever, cool, that's it. But the wardrobe, it's destroyed, that's it, it's gone. But someone can make another one. They have to go to that universe. Otherwise, all it is a door to another location in the world that you're in.
I mean, that sounds like I'm winning from one.
Yeah.
Be fair.
Sounds like I'm in the winning position.
But I think it needs the material of like a dying star or some crap. It's something like there's only like one of them. to make it, I think.
What's that?
That's why there's only one of them.
The Omnitrix.
Yeah.
I could need something stupid.
Something like that.
Either way,
the fifth element.
Thank you very much for listening, everyone. I hope that you've all had some kind of enjoyment from us prattling on. But thank you very much for listening. This has been the Animite Tales podcast. We have been talking about the Animite Tales tabletop RPG and, of course, how to make different items in the system. Thank you very much for listening, and, of course, have a wonderful night.
See you in the future.
So if you jam two wardrobes together,
what happens? I guess it becomes a wardrobe session.
New portal.
Yeah,
you just keep walking forever.
You just keep going forever. Would that be called, I guess, Chell's paradox? Ciao, ciao for now.